What up, everyone? This is Mr. Lord, Dr. Professor, Dark Joker, here with another edition of Traditional Fans with Opinions, where I'll give my reviews for whoever I watched, read, or played today. And who are Traditional Fans with Opinions? That is myself, and that is you, the viewers. With all that being said, on with the reviews. The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, Season 7, Episode 14, full season. So in this episode, so the team like basically recaps the whole season with all the tests they've done this year, and the interference that causes the tests to go wrong, and also caused this show to basically keep on going because we still trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And yet, Brandon Fugel brings in some guests like Dr. Hal Putoff, Jay Stratton, and Congressman Tim Burchett. Burchett being well known for trying to be associated with like the UAP or UFO like disclosure stuff. So yeah, so you have all. So basically, they're going over all this and what they all each know, or at least what, in case of some, like what they're allowed to say. Because you have like NDAs and clearance stuff. But yeah, so they go over it, and I would say this is definitely the more entertaining episode of the season, just due to like all the extra stuff they added in, like with the people brought in through like Zoom calls or whatever, with what they know. Like, so yeah, I thought it was a good episode. I mean, overall season, it's been fine. It's just it is getting a little stale because like it's like either doing rockets, drones, or something, but some interference causes problems like that is literally every season. And you have basically when they were drilling the mesa, they missed whatever they were trying to find. So yeah, I mean, like, yeah. So overall, I thought it was a decent episode. I thought it was a decent season. I look forward to season 8. Clevatess, season 2, episode 7. So in this episode, so Jazz Hack, his goons, they're watching the ballots going on, and they're trying to like get, they infiltrate the school, and so they're trying to make their move whenever they feel it's right, the right time passes. And Gar and Alicia, they find Clem, but then they go back to Rod, and so Gart's able to translate through like whatever Alicia says to Rod, and so then while this is going on, so there's like this cult in Hood like meeting. Basically, the group's called the Union, trying to recreate the hero legend. They've basically been a secret society just for a while. Tygo and Leon knock out two of the cultists and take their hoods and use as disguises. And Edison sneaks in, and follows them in. So, and Dean is believed to be the leader of the Union. And so, of course, there's suspicions about like how Solsi and Doral are connected to the Dean. And then Dean, it's revealed that Dean, it's actually a mask. It's not the real Dean. It's revealed to actually Princess Milia. It's revealed that years ago Milia was like depressed because like her mother had jumped off a building and died, and Doral uh entered the kingdom, asked to be allowed to study magic in exchange for him serving the king. The king agreed, and Milia hears some voice, and Doral knows she hears it. So he tells her to ask the mirror um, who it is, and Vorden then starts manipulating Milia, and so Milia is given the book of Toa and is taught by Doral how to use it. And so whenever she was so whenever when she was 14 years later, she had gotten the real Dean and killed him and basically turned his skin into like a mask. And Rothwell's planning to confront Vorden, and what during the whole like once Vorden reveals himself, and so and then through Gart, Alicia tells Rod to destroy Milia's book. Now, as far as she's concerned, it's Dean, not Milia. And then Alicia jumps through a crack in the side of the world she's in order to find the secret chamber, and that's the end of the episode. So yeah, I thought it was a really good episode. How they introduced Milia as like this big villain guy was really good. The big twist with the Dean. Yeah, we're probably getting to the closer to the end game with this season. But dude, it's insane all the crap's gone on this school. But yeah, I thought it was a good episode. Looking forward to the next one. Thunder 3, episode 7. So in this episode, so you have the battle and Shibuya, where like the rebellion's fighting the aliens. You have Segami's giving some early focus early on. Then the second half of the episode largely focuses on the core small three Hiroshi, Suame, and Piantaro. So like they so Piantaro, he's staying with this universe's version of his family, and so he and this universe version of himself see like a live stream of the fight of the Battle Shibuya. So yeah, definitely things are escalating as far as this battle goes. But yeah, I thought interesting, seeing what it goes like once the small three get involved in the fight, how they will help turn the tide of the battle should be interesting. But yeah, I thought it was a good episode. You know, Honestly, you have the whole like the aliens are trying to deal with Funaba, and of course that's not worked out well, which has been kind of funny. But yeah, I thought it was a good episode. Looking forward to the next one. Tomb Raider King episode 7. So in this episode, uh, Juhyun, um, uh, yeah, so Taejun like tries to like make an offer to Juhyun, but Juhyun just cuts his head off. But turns out that Taejun has the Achilles relic that allows him to like stay alive. So then Juhyun then beats up Taejun to where he's like close to death, or whatever. And and so after that, Juhyun tries to get some relics. Gets the relics he gets from like Taejun, like restored whatever form, so, like restored, and so he can use it. So he finds he finds this one like former art student whose basically work was stole like whose work was stolen by like his teacher, who now like works at like restoring like relics, there's stuff like that, and yeah, and so Jaha, who's the guy's name, once he learns about that his teacher likely used a relic to steal his art, like by reading his mind, he runs to Taejun, who he was also working with, like doing like contract work for, I guess. Tries to get Taeju to help, but Taeju says no. Basically, he's friend with you know friends with Jaeha's former teacher or whatever. So yeah, that's gonna be a pro. Then Juhyun arrives to help Jaeha like escape from like the thugs or whatever. And so yeah, I thought it was a good episode. Like I said, Jaeha, the restorers are the fact that you can restore relics and why that's needed. That's gonna be an interesting thing to see explored. Um, then you have how Taejun like basically obviously he's not dead, so yeah, they were gonna kill him off this early, I guess. But we'll see what happens with the rest of the season with like this conflict between Joo Hyun and Taejun. But yeah, I thought it was a good episode. Looking forward to the next one. Saga Tanya the Evil, um, season 2, episodes 1 through 7. So in these episodes, Tanya's basically she has her new unit Salamander. Basically, they head to the Eastern Front against the Federation, and yeah, so then you have so Zedor and Rudersdorf, they're trying to like they discuss so like the Allied Kingdom, send has the multinational volunteer force to help the Federation, and so yeah, so Tanya's her unit's struggling against like the communists, like basically so and, she's concerned that all the soldiers that they're fighting against, they're like basically they're all like all full support of communism. Um, and it's revealed that it's not necessarily the case. So a lot of the soldiers actually really hate communism. They want to defend their nation. And so yeah, so there was this propaganda that Tanya was trying to distribute, but turns out like the desire for them to defend their nation is what whatever propaganda they do is not really going to work. So Tanya's like, "Rat, we screwed up." Yeah. So then basically, you know, so then you have everyone's trying, the empire's trying to deal with like public opinion, whatever, and so yeah, and then it looks like there's peace talks going on. Somebody's trying to figure out how the way to end the war. But yeah, Ruzor and Zedor, they're talking about the war, and they're hoping like the war, the whatever counterattack's going on, is about it ends the war. And then yeah, so Zedor was transferred to the Eastern Front because he pissed off some politicians, and he meets up with Tanya, and Tanya's pissed that there's not gonna be a ceasefire. So now there's a planet called Operation Andromeda, which is supposed to seize territories that are rich in resources from the Federation. And there's ideas for Tanya's group to be a decoy, draw the Federation forces. The reserve unit would destroy. Tanya does not want to do it because she's scared of dying and all that, but forced to accept. Now the United States helps the Federation, and so Operation Andromeda becomes very problematic for the Empire. You know, so Loria tries to capture Tanya. Of course, that doesn't work. And yeah, so you know, yeah, so yeah, so Gantz is who Tanya Mox is sucking. Starts works with the Zedor on like during the battle. So yeah, and so Zedor like draws out the Federation forces in order to help like Tanya and her forces hit the Federation from the rear. Tanya sees what's going, and so Tanya arrives to fight with Zedor, so they fight back to back. Then after the battle, they have tea and they discuss, basically Project Andromeda failed, and they try to figure out what's going to happen with the Empire. Zedor says that the Empire is drunk on victory, and that the only way to stop war may be to stage a coup. Or is he suggests that without directly saying. Talia does not give a she basically says she's a soldier. She's going to do her job and not betray the nation. And once Tanya goes back to like the capital to basically see how the empire is, and tells Tanya that you know, his group's on leave, and basically he implies to Tanya that maybe Tanya's group would need to do an air raid on their own capital for politicians to wake up, try and make peace. And Rudersdorf mentions that the high command, like all the politicians above them, the military, they're basically they want victory, but they don't have any actual goals with that for how to get victory. So basically, it's a war of attrition right now. And yeah, so you basically have like a funeral where there's no body in it because they guess they couldn't carry the bodies home. And then yeah, it seems like everyone's telling thinks that everyone's calm, but Rudersdorf says basically everyone's just drained. They don't even have motivation to even scream at what else happened with the war. And during a walk through the city, Tanya realizes that there's no peaceful, happy ending for her, even if the war ends, and she like curses being X. But yeah, I thought these were good episodes. Like I liked how like they showed the war, all these big battles going on. Then like what's going on in the Empire, showing that guess the military leaders and politicians, honestly they don't like each other a lot. So that's gonna be interesting how that develops. But yeah, I thought it was a good episode. Looking forward to the next one. Freefall, A Reckoning for Boeing. So this is a documentary that premiered on Netflix. It's about all the whistleblowers who reported on Boeing's like issues, like the quality control issues, safety issues with all the airplanes. Puts a lot of focus on John Barnett, who sadly passed away in 2024. He was whistleblowing on a lot of stuff. A lot of issues between him and Boeing. Yeah, and how that affected his career, where his mental health were. But yeah, it's a pretty good documentary. It goes over all the problems and all the issues Boeing has that need to get fixed. And yeah, with all the people involved, it gets a good job showing all that. But yeah, so yeah, I thought it was a good documentary. I recommend watching it. Well, and that's it. Did y'all like the stuff I reviewed? And if you have your own opinions about all that, you can put all that in the comments. Thank you for watching, and like, subscribe, and all that. And look forward to the next video.